A 1v1 arena does not fit a Juggernaut playstyle. Why abandon the team fight to win a 1v1? Because that's what a Juggernaut wants, is to beat the shit out of someone. Right? Like, Juggernauts aren't looking at team fights drooling, right? They're not being like, oh man, 5 characters I can interact with. Juggernauts very often want to, like, run at a guy and beat the crap out of them. A common thing we need to do with melee champions is find ways that they can actually exist in team fights. Because it turns out your health is a lot better against 1 person than it is against 5 people. This is why characters like Yasuo have wind wall as an example. This is why Darius's Q heals him for every person he hits. And so Mordekaiser being like, I am a Juggernaut, and the reward of me being a Juggernaut and getting to you is I get to challenge you to a 1v1 and beat the crap out of you in my death realm, I think is like totally appropriate for like a Juggernaut like him. Especially since he doesn't have a dash. And then on top of that, I think it's just cool. Like, it's cool for Mordekaiser to take you to the death realm. That's like, I think, a cool high fantasy thing to do. I think there's an argument in chat going on right now about Mordekaiser's viability in high MMR play. I often have to remind people, and I'll keep doing it, it is not important that every single character in the game is completely viable at all levels of play, especially when it comes to Master Plus. Because at Master Plus, the game is heavily, heavily optimized, such that many patterns would need very significant changes to make them truly viable up there. And those changes can often risk coming at the cost of the enjoyment of the people who already like the character. So as an example with Mordekaiser, I think it's totally fine to buff him in ways that high MMR players would be better at. Mordekaiser is a character who is fairly popular and enjoyed in low MMR. So any changes we do to him would need to ensure that they don't make him worse for everybody who plays him in low MMR. He's trying to tell us that MORDE is the only champion in the game to not have an OTP in Challenger. So whether or not that is true, that is not an important statistic to balance the game by, is what I would say. Whether or not a character has 1 tricks in Challenger is not necessarily something that, like, we should be shooting for. Like, the game does not necessarily get better if every character has a 1 trick in Challenger. Now, is it cool if you can play Mordekaiser and pop off and get the Challenger? Yeah. But it's more important that Mordekaiser is fun and balanced and enjoyable for the majority of his players, who, in Mordekaiser's case, tend to be not necessarily Challenger players. Explain Viego, his thought process. We wanted to make the Ruined King. There is a number of things that were really important about making the Ruined King. One of the ones is that he had to be very special. He couldn't have a normal kit because he's the Ruined King, right? So like some characters just have this like kind of like innate expectation that goes with them, and Viego is one of those characters. So like we felt it was pretty important that like he wasn't just like a normal guy. Like you had to like, he needed a pretty crazy kit basically. So that was like one of the things that went into you were thinking about when making him. The other thing is like there's a lot of expectations what comes with being the Ruined King in terms of what his kit does. Guy leads an army of the dead, an army of ghouls. The guy controls the black mist, right? And so we wanted something to do with like either minions or controlling the dead, or making mist around the map, turning places into like the Shadow Isles, stuff like that. So we ended up with his passive and his E to deliver on that. But like there's other versions of Viego that maybe he has like an army of ghouls that he like summons, right? Like there's possibly a version of Viego that was like a summoner, but yeah, just noting that Viego was like, he had really high expectations and his kit had to be pretty crazy and out there. Like it wasn't a character we could do a simple kit on. Most of the time it's totally fine to do like really simple kits that don't do anything all that different, but Viego had to really stand out because the Ruined King was a big deal in our lore. Like that's something that had been built up for like basically a decade at that point. Whatever we did with him had to really stand out. And so after months of iterating and not really finding a couple months of iterating and not really finding anything any good, I came up with the idea of like old Mordekaiser ult. Actually, it was like, hey, Mordekaiser, I want Viego to control the dead. Mordekaiser has had this ultimate where he could literally control the dead that we removed. Maybe we should give Viego Mordekaiser's old ult. And it was like, oh, well, the problem with that is it's only really cool if you take an AD carry. If you take a mage or anything else, like it's not actually that interesting because, you know, you can't cast their spells. And so I was talking to 2 other designers at the time, Riot, Lutzberg, and Riot and Jag. And Jag had been working on Seraphine, and one of the things he tried on Seraphine was mind control. Seraphine used to have a spell that would straight up mind control an enemy and cause them to kill all their teammates. Not unlike what Renata Glass does with her like Berserk taunt. But Seraphine could mind control you, basically. She could steal your body, not steal your body like Viego, but like actually like gain control of your champion and have it kill your teammates. Didn't work out for Seraphine. But, you know, it was on his mind, and so he was like, well, what about mind control? Like, can we do anything with mind control? And I was like, I don't know. You, like, have to lose control of your character. That seems pretty rough. And, you know, through talking through it more, we came to this conclusion of, well, okay, we can't do full mind control, but what if Viego possessed someone, right? Like, possession, spirit, like, spectral possession. Like, he mind controls you by, like, becoming you. And it was like, okay, well, how's he going to do that? Oh, when he kills you. And so the idea was, like, he kills someone, and then they're now his to dominate because he, like, controls the dead, right? So then Viego kills you, and then now you're in his domain, and he has Sovereign's domination over your soul. And voila. And that's how we got there. And so, yeah. And then we got to the mind control on Viego, and that ended up testing really, really well. And then pretty immediately after I tested it, it was like, well, what if he reset through a fight? Like, what if he could do this to everybody in the fight? Originally, it was on his ultimate, and he could do it once. So he would, like, you know, kill someone, he'd take their body, and, like, that was it. That was his ult, was kill someone and take their body. And then I was like, well, what if he was kind of like this, like, snowball-y, reset-y guy who would, like, basically just, like, use bodies and, like, jump through the fight with it? Because one of the most important parts, I thought, one of the cool parts that revealed itself with stealing someone's body, right, like, you know, becoming a Blitzcrank or something, was trying to get the next kill. It's actually a lot less interesting if you kill someone, get their body, and then don't really care about what happens afterwards. Because you're like, well, what's the point of getting their body then? You've already won the fight. And so kind of like really moving him towards, well, he's about killing someone and then using them to kill someone else, and then using them to kill someone else, and then using them to kill someone else. And so we got to this like cool resetting pattern where you would steal a body and then use that to transition to the next person that you were trying to beat up, which created this really weird skirmisher, resetting assassin kind of guy that he ended up being. The other thing that's very important about Viego, and if Wick is here, he'd be like, August, no, don't do this to me. But the other thing that's really important about Viego is that his base status, like his base form, is pretty trash. Like if you look at Viego's like base kit, if you take away the passive, it's actually somewhat non-functional for a skirmisher. Skirmishers tend to need a lot more tools than Viego has on his base kit. Again, minus the passive to function. Skirmishers need like Jack's dodge or Yasuo wind wall or really, really good target access. And I know you're like, August, Viego has a move speed buff, a dash, and an ult. Yeah, but the ultimate has a cast time, and the move speed buff is camo, and the dash is really short and can't go over walls. And so like at the end of the day, Viego's base kit deliberately is somewhat non-functional for a skirmisher / bruiser, because he's intended to, like, if you're not killing people and you're not getting that body, yeah, you're going to be way worse off. But then if you are getting that body, you're going to be very powerful. And so that's kind of the idea with Viego's base kit, kind of like lacking some tools. We deliberately didn't give him really any like defensive buttons, as an example, on his base kit, in order to like put all that power into like what happens when you steal a body.